That's bad.
Alright guys, we are getting back to work on this absolute unit today. As you can see, we got the slicks back on it. I don't really know how well I can live with them because they sticking out away. And on the side where it has the dent on the bed, it looks even worse. But we got the stockies back on the Skylark. Don't hate it. Don't love it, but don't hate it. Yeah, picked up some 28s off Marketplace for 60 bucks. They've got about half tread, give or take. They're not too bad, but 60 bucks. And for the track, they'll be fine, to be honest. For the street, they've got maybe 1 or 2 passes left in them. The streets with the moonshine and stuff, that really takes life off your tires. So at a track, water burnout where it's already smooth and everything in the burnout box, shit, could probably run a whole season on these. But at the street, they'd get torn up real quick. So things we got to do today: steal the other fronts off the Skylark, throw them here. That way they all match. And then got to change the converter in this thing with the other one I've got that will hopefully stall around like 3,500 and weld up the rear end. And I've got to seal up the thermostat housing because, as you can see, this thing is just be pissing. So it is dripping from under there. So we're just gonna silicone that deal. Don't know why that thing started leaking all of a sudden, but is what it is, and it ain't what I like. And then, oh yeah, I gotta do the front shocks. So we're gonna start with probably the worst part, swapping the converters, which hopefully shouldn't take too long. I got this thing pretty well beat up so that we should be able to get to it pretty easily. Yeah, so these wheels, they're just not the right offset. You can see we got, how much? I can fit 2 fingers between them. So what is that, 1.5 inches? I know the rear end's still centered. This one, just that bedside being dented in makes it look a whole lot worse. Almost like the axle's offset, but it ain't. We gotta do all the typical: pull the drive shaft, disconnect the shifter, disconnect the torque converter, bell housing bolts. Might be able to just take these out and slide it back enough. We'll see. Might have to drop the exhaust too. So I'm just gonna do this one step at a time real quick. And I might throw a muffler on here, but haven't really decided on that just yet. But there's no reason for this thing to be so obnoxiously loud. All right, transmission is ready to come out as soon as I take these 2 bell housing bolts out. That one's loose. And that one's loose. So it is just resting on the dowels now. Alright, got the trans all bolted back in, shifter's hooked up, lines are all hooked up. So all I gotta do now is get the exhaust back on. Like I said, probably put a muffler on it, which I think I've got a 2-into-1 or maybe a 1-into-2 that I'll just put on backwards. And then probably change the front wheels real quick with those ones. And then we'll weld up the rear end. And then probably move this thing out so I can get something else in here that just has to get done immediately. Sheesh. All right, all back together, sans drive shaft. The only thing left to do is I'd like to put some sort of muffler on this thing just to peep it down a little bit. But the one that I was gonna put on it, that Flowmaster right there, it does have 3 openings on it, but there's 1 inlet here and then an outlet on each side, so don't really think that's gonna work. And then I've got these little guys here that I actually got for the Skylark, but I don't know when I'm gonna get to the exhaust on that because stuff just keeps piling up around here. So I might just slip those on for now, and then probably just do like a self-tapper, fire it up, see how it sounds. If it sounds decent enough, then probably burn it on and call it a day. So I'm gonna get those on, get the drive shaft in, and then we'll drop it down and fire it up. All right, mufflers are on. We are back on the ground. Still have a few things to do. Got to weld up the rear end, change the front wheels, but they're up there pretty good for as low as this thing relatively is. So I'm very anxious to know what these things are going to sound like. Is it going to sound like crap? Is it going to sound pretty decent? All I know is those things were pretty cheap. I think they were like 60 bucks for the pair, 65 bucks for the pair. Because I didn't want anything crazy. I just wanted a chambered muffler that sounded decent. If it kills 20 horsepower, that's fine. We're not trying to rotate the earth, you know. So let's fire this thing up, hear how it sounds. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Yeah, that quieted it down pretty good. I can live with that. So we'll get this thing lifted back up in the air, burn those on, weld up the rear end, and then wheels, lug nuts. Then I guess we can move this thing out of the way for now. Alright, so now that we got the mufflers on, sounds pretty decent. Don't know how much actually quieter it is, but I like the tone, so we'll probably end up just keeping them on. Like I said, they were cheap, so if and when I ever get around to doing the exhaust on the Skylark, we can either pull these off or just get another pair. And like I said, if we turbo this thing, we won't need them anyway, so we can always put them back on the Skylark, or on the Skylark for the first time. But now that that's done, and yeah, I will make some sort of hanger to pull them up a little bit and keep them secure. Anyway, now that that's done, you can move on to the rear end. Got this thing all brake cleaned. Got some tin foil on the ring gear so we don't get any splatter on that, hopefully. We're just gonna freaking puddle up these corners. Just try and melt as much of that material together as we can, make it as strong as possible. I know some people like to cut out little like plates to go in there and weld, but I've never had any issues with just welding the corners on one side and then the other. I mean, that's 8 points that are going to have a pretty hefty amount of weld in them. So, and to be honest, this thing's making 350 horsepower anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna start burning this thing in. Alright, got that all welded up, rolled it over probably 10-15 times now, Everything still feels nice and smooth, so going to silicone the cover, throw that thing back on. Well, I'm going to blow it out and then wipe everything out of there. Once it's clean, then I'll silicone the cover, put that back on. We'll top it off with some gear oil, and then we are all set on the rear end, at least until it breaks and blows up and makes a whole mess all over the lane. Hell yeah, man. This thing's not too bad. It sounds pretty good. Got a few more bugs to work out of it yet. Still have to fix the driver's side manifold. I was hoping that I got it, but nope. I'm gonna have to pull that thing off and actually bend it, but man, this thing looks way better. I wish the wheels had a little more back spacing, but shit, it looks pretty good out here. I think it's a hair low on transmission fluid too. I never put any in it after changing it, so it's probably about a quart low. But yeah, this thing's pretty rad. It has a good look to it now too. Yeah, these wheels, God, I just wish that they had like an inch more back spacing. Like, I think that these are probably like 4. If they had like 5 or 5.5, it'd be perfect. And then just a quick little dry hop. It felt pretty good, you know, little NA dry hop. The butt dyno said like a 2.0 60 foot. But yeah, overall, I think we got ourselves a good little beater here. This thing should be fun. I'm hoping I should be able to button up a few more things. Gonna try to take it to the track this weekend perhaps, which is in 2 days. And I've got some other stuff to work on, so we'll see. But there's a few things left to do to this before I'd feel comfortable taking it to the track and risking scattering it and ruining everyone's day for like an hour or so while they clean up. The tune is, I need to just take the time to try to get this tune actually dialed in, because it's still just a bass tune thrown in there for just poops and chuckles. They'll probably be fine, but the tires have a little bit of dry rotting around the side. Dry rotted tires make me so nervous. Like, you would not believe it. Like, if they're bald, that's one thing, but if they're dry rotted, just at like 90 miles an hour, I don't know how fast this thing's gonna go, but let's say 90, something comes apart, that's a bad time. So yeah, there's a few things left to do, but overall the truck is pretty dang good. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hopefully enjoying the dime a dozen videos. Thank you guys for subscribing, clicking that bell, and I will see you next time.